Alright, so tried to do a video on this earlier, didn't come out very well. Um, so I'm gonna try this again. Uh, Basically, where I am currently is I'm working on, let's see here, uh, extra content for the Frontiers Reach universe as a whole. I'll go ahead and just pan my camera up here a little bit. I've got a tripod, I just need to put it into use, but I put on a lot of weight the past 4.5 years and I don't look very good on camera. So, uh, kind of self-conscious about that. I also just don't want to be the focus of this whole thing. Um, I would really like for the work that I do to be the focus of this thing. Also, summer's coming up, and that's usually when I get out and lose all the weight that I put on over the winter. So, uh, yeah. Anyways, moving on. So, Frontiers Reach 1, fighter balances and tweaks are coming. That's on my list. It's right there. That one right there. Over here is all the battle space stuff to work on. We've got early access launch planned. I need to get launch trailer and store graphics together, but when this thing goes into early access, the idea here is to get collect as much feedback as possible, make the changes necessary to make it an enjoyable experience, and then eventually move it over to mobile, so that there's a mobile app that we can deploy. On top of that, the there's a I'm not sure if I should say anything about this yet. I imagine I'll get reprimanded if not, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. But there is a definitive edition of Frontiers Reach 1 being planned. That's where some of this content down here comes from. Basically, there are some digital assets like PDFs being planned or being put together for a definitive edition for Frontiers Reach, as well as some 3D printables that are going to go out with that. Part of that includes a version of, or a copy of Battlespace, Frontiers Reach Battlespace. Additionally, I've been working slowly on the tech demo for Frontiers Reach 2. That's been kind of the focus the past couple weeks because I just wanted to get jump started on that and sort of get a little bit of work together for people to kind of like dive into and look at. If you followed the videos on the Terrain Explorer, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That is available and we'll be getting updates as time goes by. I'm going to be switching over to Battlespace development here in the next couple of weeks, though, to get it ready for early access. Then, but to elaborate on the development for Frontiers Reach 2 tech demo, some of the things that I need to work on are AI for NPCs, vehicle rigs for all the different vehicles that are going to be playable, so ground vehicles, starfighters, landing craft, maybe possibly boats. We'll see. Just kind of depends on what kind of things are, or what kind of terrain is going to be available for the first map. If you're familiar with the release schedule for Ark Survival Evolved, where they released a new map that had new stuff on it every, I don't know, I think it was every year or something like that. That's basically what I'm aiming for Frontiers Reach 2. We'll see if I can actually pull it off. Floor density and dungeons. So one of the big things that I'm kind of wrestling with right now is I'm not quite able to get the nice, large, dense jungles on a large map. That's just proving really difficult in Unity. I'm going to keep trying to hammer on it and get it to where I need it to be, but yeah. And then on top of that, there's the dungeons. So each map will have some form of dungeon on it. For Frontiers Reach, the actual like level itself, right now that's the Vir Catacombs and maybe some caves here and there. But eventually, when we get to other maps like Quixote's Dream, those dungeons will take on a completely different form. Uh, Two big things are going to be asynchronous loading from the carrier to the planet and from the carrier to space. So, following in the footsteps of the original Frontiers, of Frontiers Reach 1, rather than having a giant universe where the player has lots of downtime as they travel from one location to the next, what we'll do is we'll asynchronously load with a fancy loading sequence, a very fancy loading sequence, um, one key location after another. So when you want to travel to a key location, like to a planet or something, rather than forcing you to sit through 15 minutes of travel, you'll get a nice loading sequence that's dressed up to like look like a seamless transition between space to planet. Um, and then, of course, there will also be points in space you'll get to visit that will be things like space stations, asteroid clusters, gas clouds, stuff like that. Basically, Frontiers Reach 1, but with less of a jarring loading experience. Much more smoothed out, completely seamless. Or at least as seamless as I can get it. Then I need to work on the armor system and weapon systems, and those are going to be interesting because I want to try and do some things that are different from maybe what other people have seen in other games, where rather than having a piece of armor that has a set stats value, you would be able to change the stats value based off of what you slot into that armor. So let's say you have a chest piece that you really like and you don't want to get rid of it. Well, rather than getting rid of it or duplicating it or whatever, you would instead change the material slot on it so that rather than it being made out of like steel or something like that, you would instead make it out of like high grade polymer ceramic mix or something. And that would be like a module that you slot in and out of the armor. So uh, it's something that I want to experiment with. We'll see if I can actually pull it off, and that's going to also go for the weapon system as well. A custom weapon system where you can actually just slot different things into the weapon to change its stats rather than getting a new weapon entirely. Then of course multiplayer. If you've played Ghost Recon Wildlands or Breakpoint, then you'll know exactly what I'm aiming for here. The goal is to have a large environment with 4 players, and those 4 players can then go throughout that environment and interact with it in various ways. A dynamic environment rather than a procedural generated environment would include things like outposts, where if you take down the raiders that have taken over that outpost, you take out those raiders, and then the next time you load into the map, it might be rival mercenaries, friendly locals, or it could be something along the lines of a group of creatures have infested it, and they've set up their nesting grounds there, and you're being asked to clear it out. So it really just kind of depends. There'll probably be some randomization to it, but ideally, each map will be a dynamic map with various factors that control what happens next and has a high level of persistence. So if you get shot down in a landing craft at one point, you could potentially go back there and salvage supplies from it if you're later down the line trying to run a mission and you go back to that crash site. Then of course there's all sorts of artwork that needs to be done. Lots and lots of artwork. So, and I'm the only one working on this right now, so yeah, it's going to be a while. And I also have Battle Space to work on and Frontiers Reach 1 to tweak up and maintain and curate. So, yeah, that's basically the studio update for the week, and until next time, I'll see you later.